TIFU by using funny naming conventions in my code. TIFU itself happened some months ago. Repercussions came in today. I'm a college senior desperately looking for programming jobs in my area. It's been a grueling process with rejection after rejection and dozens of intense interviews. As part of my resume, I have included a coding project I worked on last summer. A card game written in Python. I worked on it alone with no professional supervision, and I definitely did not think too much about notes written for myself. Last month, it seemed I had gotten somewhere with a company which asked me to come back for a second interview. The last one before they chose to accept or reject me. I sent them my resume and game code and got ready for the interview. Overall it went well. I was able to answer just about every question they threw at me related to programming. One interviewer gave me a challenge question related to bit shifting and I was able to answer it, which he congratulated me on. At the end of the interview they told me I would receive their decision within 2 weeks. I was excited and thought that I had finally gotten a job lined up for after college. Less than 3 days later I received a rejection email. I was beyond frustrated and had no idea what I had done wrong. The next day I sent an email to the head interviewer asking her what she found wrong in the interview so that I could avoid making the same mistake later. Here is the response email I received today. Paraphrased. Hi you, 40th Adam 4. Thanks for reaching out and I'm really glad that you asked for feedback. I'm going to be totally honest with you when I tell you that we found some of the naming conventions and comments in your code offensive and unprofessional for an interview setting, and we were unable to get past your lack of attention to detail and judgment. It's unfortunate because other than that you demonstrated strong technical knowledge and communication skills. I know this is probably disappointing for you to hear, but hopefully you won't make this same mistake in future interviews. Thanks. Interviewer. Sweating. I went and checked on the card game code. It turns out that I had named all of my turn-taking variables different versions of the word penis. All of them. As in, every single time a player takes a turn, the program uses penis to denote that turn. And I had just shown that to a group of professional programmers. There goes my chances at a job. TLDR. Programmed a card game. Used the word penis for a bunch of variable strings. And promptly forgot about them. Tried to use that code for a job interview. They noticed. I got rejected immediately. I can only imagine if players themselves were using that naming convention. Whose penis is it now? Quote, oh, it's my penis. Years ago, I worked with a developer who inevitably used fish as a metasyntactical placeholder value. Tester. Performing final checks before production. I just got an undeclared fish error? Quote, us. David. Quote, did this with a data analyst a couple of years ago in SQL. We ended up with a bunch of silly table names, like Doomed Wiener and Wiener Join. It was not a fun conversation with the team we wrote it for. Tester here. This is one reason why after a while in the job a wise tester uses really boring names for their test data. Serious reply here to add feedback. Unable to get past your lack of attention to detail. That's the key here. IMHO. If you're not reviewing code you're submitting for an interview and doing a S penis less than redacted per gram. What company sensitive information are you going to share posting a code sample on Reddit asking a question? Are you going to do something dumb like embed AWS credentials in code, then doing something absolutely dangerous like commit it to a public repository? Whenever I ask or answer a question with a code sample I redact or change things like usernames, machine names, company names, IP addresses, etc. that could help give a potential hacker information they can turn around and use in an attack. Even if they don't have internal access yet, stuff like that can be used for a highly targeted phishing campaign. I'm sure over the years I've missed things, but I really make an honest effort not to. Worked with artists years ago at a company, and picked up the idea of maintaining a portfolio from them. I've used those on interviews a few times. Mostly it amuses me when I update it once a year or so and look back at how much I've learned and improved over 20 plus years. What I cringe at now. What technologies I forgot I worked with years ago. But even then, as I add samples to the portfolio, I redact them as I put the examples in there to try and avoid accidentally showing someone something in a hypothetical interview that would reveal sensitive information about the place I did that work. Player entity is. I learned a lot from the old, retiring COBOL guys when I was starting my career years ago. Always make sure your VARs, procedures, routines, etc., are named well. Apparently their 1960s predecessors named things like date vars fluffy, spot, Fido, and all sorts of stuff other than date or time. Furthest off the tracks I've gone so far was calling my jar file handler Jarhead. Got some chuckles while still relating to what it did. Look on the bright side. If they took the trouble of writing that detailed email, you were clearly very good. You're going to find a job. Just never ever send anything to anybody in a professional setting without going over it. And if it's any consolation, my boss once told me to please remove all 72 instances of the Word that I had, at some point or another, added to our production code, no matter how justified they were. So this is definitely something that happens in the industry. I'm sure there will be people defending the op and saying the company should have just hired him. I'm also pretty sure those people have also never actually had to hire anyone before. It's a challenging process and you never really know who you're getting. It could, like with op, just have been some silliness forgotten in a personal project that turned into a resume builder. But it could also be someone with frequent inattention to detail or who would do that in a professional setting. And that's not a risk you want to take as a hiring manager. With programmers especially, there's a lot of humor that goes around. We named an application Thunder at my last job because we all used to yell THUNDAAA when we were hitting go on a new build. I've left some pretty sarcastic and scathing comments in code. But you have to know the line and you have to know where you are. Some places can't tolerate that at all. Anything for a client, that can't be present. You don't take a risk on someone, especially someone fresh, when you don't know. Op is owning up to his mistake. And that's good. It was a mistake. We all make them. It's a learning experience. And he won't make it again. Good luck out there, Op. I had an IT lab partner who got in trouble for something like this when I was in college. He was a frat boy who was absolutely obsessed with his fraternity, Sigma Pi Epsilon, and insisted on putting the initials SPE into names that he gave to servers he was setting up. The course I was in with him was called Network Information Systems, or NIS. You probably see where I'm going with this. He named one of the servers SPENIS, and legitimately did not see why our instructor got pissed about it. At my first job, we got an email one Friday morning from the head of engineering. Everyone stop what you are working on and get all of the inappropriate words out of our codebase. Turns out they were doing a round of funding and were showing off the latest program with it crashed. The error message was, "If you see this, you are foo." Turns out it was a 100% correct error message and we did not get the funding. 35% of staff let go the next month. Honestly, naming conventions matter. Variables aren't just buckets for holding your values. They contribute to the readability of the code. Name them for what they are. I don't know if I'd have rejected you over it, but I'd definitely view it as shoddy code. If you want to be a programmer, descriptive variable names, down to not even using X and Y. 20 years later someone else will need to read your code and understand what you are trying to do. Let's say you have an integer field where you are storing the number of pens. Pens is alright, but it doesn't tell you it is an integer unless you dig into it. Pens is worse, as it is only one character shorter, but is unclear. Num pens is much better. You know it is a number and how many pens. Int pens is even better. You know it is an integer and how many pens. I'd only accept num pens or int pens for this name. Also, make sure during your declaration, you comment what it is going to be used for. And if you don't comment this, you are dead. Reminds me of the system I knew about but never had to work with. It was called Testing Information Tracking System. The issue came to a head when one of the female programmers found a bug in some code, remarked on it at her desk, and someone Alace responded with, "Well, Sally, get it on your tits then." Just as a senior manager was walking by. The application got renamed pretty soon after that. Oh my Lanta, this is funny, but I am sorry you lost an opportunity for this position. I just started college and my degree is specifically computer software technology. I'm hoping to land a software developer, software engineer position once I graduate. You're perfect for this job, but you use the word penis a little too much for our liking. Nice. Well, I guess you learned a valuable lesson. Use names for variables and functions relative to the purpose. Always. Many years ago, the startup I worked for bought SAN from a Dollar Enterprise. As part of the setup, Dollar Enterprise sent an engineer to help integrate it into our systems. I was the one working with her, but I had not set up the systems that we were trying to incorporate the SAN into. I'm guessing Dollar CTO had been in a bad mood when he had initially set those systems up, because some of the configuration names were quite inappropriate. We dug into the config files, and I probably turned bright red when I came across those terms. With the lady from Dollar Enterprise looking over my shoulder, she never batted an eye. A few years ago I was demoing a dashboard I was making for a business-critical process. Changing systems of reference had made the old dashboard obsolete and some rather short-sighted. Reorganization had resulted in the company realizing very last minute that this process was not covered, so I was given the job of making a new one very quickly. Alone. The old team that handled this, which I was a part of, was 5 strong, but I was the only one dumb enough to stick around. So I rushed for months to get all the data engineering and reef data and visualizations and everything put together to make a new dashboard. The night before the very first demo to business partners, I was given a new requirement and had to include new reference data and logic. However, I was working from home due to COVID and the system of reference was not behaving. So in order to get my work done, I just imported a CSV export of the reference data and coded around that so I could still do my demo. The next morning all of our science and business partners in the demo meeting opened up the dashboard to an error. Cannot find this fucking file.csv. There were close to 100 people in the meeting. I took it in stride as I already expected to be fired. My thought was that the org needed a scapegoat for its short-sightedness. Everything turned out okay. They used my dashboard for years longer than they told me they would. I got a better job for more money working for people who appreciated me more in a different part of the company. Go through and fix it. Send it back. Apologize for your oversight and stupidity. and humbly request that they consider you for a future position.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epicaricast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.